I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about my life and career journey, give you little snippets of what I've done, where I am. I also want to talk to you about some lessons learned. Everybody goes to school and textbooks do teach you about management, they teach you about science, mathematics, but things that they don't teach you are things that you learn on the job. So I'm hoping to share some of that with you. I also want to walk you through some of the technology trends and the career paths, and of course I'll open it up for any questions that you may have. So a little bit about myself. I come from a culture with parents that have very high expectations for their children. Probably sounds familiar. We all believe that in the Asian culture, that admission to a top university and receiving a Western education will guarantee a bright future. So I also came to the US for freedom. Freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, and coming to a land of opportunity where anything is possible. So I'll walk you through my journey, but to start off with, I was born in Iran. I migrated to the US before the age of 2. We moved back to Iran right before the revolution in 1978. And then we fled Iran in 1986 when the Iran-Iraq war was in progress. When we left Iran, the only place that we could migrate to was Sydney, Australia in 1986. And that was the new beginning for myself and my family. That's where I went to high school. I completed my university degree. I got married and I started my new career. But then after that didn't end there. I also migrated one more time to Southern California in 2001. So what do I do today? Let me give you a little background of how I ended up becoming the CIO today. Today I am the CIO of The Honest Company. Some of you are probably familiar with the brand. Jessica Alba, if you are a movie buff, you know of Jessica. This is her pet project. She's very proud of it. It is a baby and beauty company. We sell baby products such as diapers, creams, wipes, and then we also have a beauty business that sells our types of makeup and face cream. So how did I end up here? Let me tell you a little bit about my education. I started my university degree as an environmental scientist. I had high hopes that my degree would help me with a gratifying career while still being able to save the world. I very quickly realized that the career path wouldn't even help pay the bills. The regulations to make a difference were so strict that it would take decades to get approval, and I didn't have the patience for it. I wanted to move fast, I wanted to make money, but I also wanted to make a difference. At the time, I hadn't really found my purpose until very recently, but at the time I knew I wanted to make a change. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when. So I started my career in my first job as a junior business analyst at a health insurance company in Australia, where I was trained and mentored by my manager. I learned business analysis skills, I learned coding, I learned project management, and I learned the side of technology that I probably wouldn't have learned anywhere else. So from there, I applied for a help desk position at IBM, where I deepened my customer service and my technical skills. But due to my drive and the ability to learn and succeed, I worked my way up to leading a team of technology engineers, and then became a project manager where I led a transformation of multiple Y2K initiatives, as well as a global rollout of SAP across 8 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. The lessons I learned were vast and fierce. Failure was not an option. There was too much at stake. Millions of dollars were invested across multi-platform implementations. From there, I decided to move to the US in 2001, as I didn't think Australia had the opportunity I was looking for. I wanted more. I was thirsty for success, and the pace in Australia was too slow for me. And it was way too laid back. So when we moved to California in 2001, I was hired as a project manager to spearhead the implementation of a multinational and multi-currency ERP system for a company called Inflex across 5 locations in the US and 4 locations in China. Halfway through this role, I was presented with an opportunity that changed my career forever. There was an opening for the IT manager at the time. I was a project manager, and I reported into the engineering department, and I found out that the IT manager left, and there was an opening. So I thought to myself, if I don't take this opportunity now, I'll never get an opportunity like this again in my life. So I walked into the CFO's office, and I said, I understand you have an opening for an IT manager. And he said, yes. I said, I'd like to apply for it. He's like, do you know how to do it? I said, absolutely not. He's like, do you know what you're supposed to do? I said, I absolutely don't know what to do. He's like, so why do you want it? I said, because if I try, and if I really want it, I'll be the best at it. So he gave me that opportunity, and I did become very good at it. From there, I worked my way up to a director, to a VP at other companies, and I landed my first CIO job at the company called Red Digital Cinema. They're a 4K camera company, and they're actually a spin-off of Oakley. If you know the sunglass brand Oakley, they're a spin-off of them. So I wanted to shed some light on the difference between some of the companies. So I worked through all these large organizations. And working at Red, which was a startup, this startup had only 20 employees at the time. And when I was hired, I had the opportunity to build everything from scratch. From the people, hiring the teams, putting in processes, and building the technology. That's not an experience that you can just get off the fly. So it was very difficult. There was long nights, long days, but I learned so much from that. And one of the most valuable things I learned was dealing with people, and also mergers and acquisitions. We did over 10 acquisitions over a period of 4 years. So that taught me so much. But there were challenges along the way, and also successes. So some of the successes was learning something new every day, from the people to the processes and the technology. There were also failures. There were things that I just didn't know how to do, and I didn't do them well. But what I did was, I learned from them, picked myself up, and I kept going. I also built trust with my people. I was able to utilize their resources to be able to build what I needed to build. What I tried to do was against all odds of being a foreigner, a woman, and the youngest person in the room, I had to succeed. What I decided to do was to create a brand for myself. Someone once asked me, what is your brand? If anybody asks you that, that's something that you should really think about. What does it mean? Who are you as a person? What is your brand? So I spent many months thinking about, what is my brand? Who am I? I know my name, I know what I've done, I know what I'm currently doing, but who am I? What am I marketing myself? So I decided to craft myself. I used myself as a project. I said, okay, I'm going to break myself apart, and I'm going to dig into the details of every single piece about me. From what I wore, to how I walked, how I engaged myself in meetings, what I said, who I partnered with, and most importantly, my promise was the key to my success. If I could deliver what I say I'm going to deliver, to me that was my brand, is always keeping my promise. So one thing to be very cautious about is not to be short-sighted. It's very easy to just think about today and what you're doing in today's world. You really need to look at the future and try and be proactive, where it's very easy to be reactive. Something happens and then you react. Why? Why do we have to wait for something to happen before we react? Let's be proactive. So that's something that I've learned along the way. My father once told me to never rely on anyone. Not your parents, not your children, not even your husband. Be your own person. Be independent and choose your own destiny. So what do I do today? So now that I'm a CIO, as you know, the CIO is on the top of the triangle of the tech department. So basically I'm in charge of everything technology, from the computer systems to support the organization's objectives, from mobile applications, e-commerce, engineering, DevOps, infrastructure, cloud computing, AI, reporting and data analytics, any ERP and financial systems, BPM, and middleware. But the role of the CIO has transformed. I think in the past, the role of the CIO has always been a supportive role. We tended to be, unfortunately, in this role very reactive. Something would happen, the CIO would jump in and make things happen. In today's world, that role has changed. The CIO, to be successful, for me to be successful, I have to partner with the business. I have to know what their needs are, and to get ahead of that and provide them with solutions. But any business that fails to invest in their technology and that doesn't recognize that becomes inefficient and loses out on competition. So I'll tell you a story about an interview that I went to once. It was at an engineering firm. They actually make these little Logitech devices. So they were looking for a CIO at the time, and they're a pretty profitable company. They weren't able to find somebody that could lead the technology landscape of their company. So I went in for an interview. I met with a couple of the executives, and they were very nice. They were very cordial. But I don't think any of them really understood why they were hiring me. I couldn't get anybody to ask me the question of, what do you do? What are you going to bring to the table? So I ended up meeting with the CEO. The minute I walked into his office, after he introduced himself, he said, I don't know why I need a CIO. So back then I was very young, and I really wanted the job. And I sat down and I explained to him why he needed a CIO. I spent 30 minutes explaining to him why older technology will only hinder his company and its performance. But I don't think he truly understood. And I ended up not taking the job because I didn't feel that they truly understood what I did. So just to give you a little flavor on digital transformation. So you've heard this term before. What is digital transformation? Really, digital transformation speaks to transforming the digital landscape of an organization. But it involves so much. It's not just changing the technology. It involves changing leadership, different thinking, encouraging innovation and new business models, incorporating digitization of assets and an increased use of technology to improve the experience of the organization's employees, customers, suppliers, partners, and stakeholders. So what does that really mean? So I worked for a company, it was up on the screen before, SC Fuels. They're the largest fuel distribution company in Southern California. They've been around for 85 years, 3 generations of family running this business. And I met with the CEO, and he said that if I don't transform the technology of my business, we will go out of business. He wanted somebody to come in and transform the digital landscape of his company so that they could get more customers in, they could sell their product faster. He said, we don't have data analytics, so I don't know how my business is running. Am I profitable? I don't know. I don't have the numbers to tell me that. So it was very important for him to shift the whole company towards a truly digital transformation landscape for them to help them grow. But there are challenges that come with digital transformation. Not everybody is up for it. A lot of people say they are, but they're not. First and foremost, implementing technology is complex. It's not easy. It's not just you click on a switch and it works. There are so many intricacies that come with implementing systems. Skill sets. I myself am trying to fill multiple positions within my department, and I just can't find the skill sets out there. Not everybody is trained and knows how to use these different systems. So as you progress and you put in these new systems, you have to have the skill sets and the resources to support that. Technology is also expensive. If you don't have the funding, if the companies are not willing to put in money to buy that technology, then there's really no point. So if you don't have buy-in across the organization from the C-suite, then in my mind, that's a no-go. Digital transformation will not happen. Another thing that I also noticed is a lot of companies, even though they say they want to transform their technology, but they rely heavily on their legacy systems. They love using spreadsheets. Everybody wants to use a spreadsheet. Only because they know how to use it. It's an Excel spreadsheet, you enter the numbers and everything just works, right? So to transform that mindset into a completely automated system, that's not really something people are mostly open to do. So like I said, technology plays an important role in businesses. It can be an important enabler of business success and innovation. So it provides different channels from communication, email, instant messaging, SMS, and so on. But it really helps businesses create a competitive advantage. So I wanted to walk you through some of the emerging technology trends and some of the career paths. I think it'd be good to see what companies are saying are up and coming I'm sure there are more, but I just picked the top 5 for you. So first and foremost, they say the next biggest thing is AI. You've all heard about it. There's a lot of buzz around it, but it continues to be something to watch because it affects how we live, how we work, and how we play. It's really only, in my opinion, it's really at the early ages. Early stages of this. AI refers to the computing systems built to mimic human intelligence and perform tasks such as recognition of images, speech or pattern, and decision making. Basically, AI can do human tasks only more accurately and faster than humans. So they say that the skills needed to be in the AI world is IoT security, cloud computing, you need to know data analytics, you need to understand automation, embedded systems, and device knowledge, only to name a few. Next one is machine learning, which is another subset of AI. They say machine learning ranks amongst the top emerging jobs on LinkedIn, and almost 2,000 jobs are listed that are currently posted. They say these jobs pay well. In 2017, they said the median average salary for machine learning jobs were roughly $110,000. Robotics. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's also an emerging trend, actually. That's probably moving faster than the first two. I myself are currently implementing a robotic process automation system, and what that does is basically it automates software to talk to each other a lot faster. It's very smart. It mimics what a human being could do, but only does it faster through machines. So there's a lot of career opportunities out there as well. You can start as a developer, project manager, business analyst, mostly solution architects, and probably mostly a consultant. They say the top 10% of earnings for an RPA engineer is $140,000. Cybersecurity, you've all heard about it. That's front and center out there. It's proof that there is a strong need for professionals, and it's growing 3 times faster than any other job out there. However, we're having a hard time filling these jobs. They say that the prediction is by 2021, there'll be 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs. And then lastly is IoT, Internet of Things. There isn't a lot of talk about that, but I believe that's happening. IoT is really where there's different connectivity through Wi-Fi. We have different systems talking to each other. You'll see home devices, car devices, they all use IoT. They say the number of IoT devices have reached 10 billion in 2018, and it's expected to reach 30 billion devices by 2020. So how do you get into that field? Again, IoT security, cloud computing, data analytics, automation, understanding of embedded systems, and device knowledge is only a few of those. So I talked about some of the skills that are needed for some of the future trends, but I just wanted to give you an overview on my view of what I think the future technology trends are. This came from a consulting firm, and they believe that these are really the trends moving forward for the next couple of years. First and foremost, they believe that cybersecurity is the #1 trend. They're saying that considering the vast scope of cybercrime, security may be at the ultimate growth industry. The annual global cost of attacks is expected to hit $6 trillion by 2021, doubling in the next 6 years. To counter these threats, companies in every industry, along with many government agencies, could spend something close to $1 trillion through 2021, providing growing revenue for companies that specialize in cyber protection. Secondly is cloud computing and mobile devices. Cloud software could represent almost half of all spending on applications by 2021, and tech users migrate to remote servers. Meanwhile, most people now connect to the cloud wirelessly through their smartphones and tablets, a trend that closely links cloud and mobile technologies. And if you think about it, for mobile workers, as that trend is also growing, you don't really need to be in the office, you don't really need an infrastructure to support that, everything is through the cloud. Us, at Honest, we also have everything in the cloud. We have nothing on-prem other than the people and our desktop. Everything is cloud-based. Thirdly is the dependency on skilled workers. To bridge a growing skills gap, technology service companies are investing in workforce training and recruitment. Indeed, the question of where workers are located may now be less important than simply finding sufficient numbers of those with the necessary skills to meet rising demands at a time of growing labor shortages in most U.S. industries. There's also a growing demand for consultants because it's so hard to bring those skills in-house. More than 700,000 global firms offer consulting services in a $250 billion industry. Demand for management consulting is projected to grow at an annual rate of almost 15% through 2024. Big data, you've all heard about that. That is a big thing, especially if you're a retailer or in a CPG company. Big data and business analytics firms see a compound annual revenue growth rate of 12% through 2022 as worldwide revenue reaches a projected $260 billion. And then lastly, the challenge of disruptive technology. We already talked about AI and how work gets done in every industry from healthcare to marketing and to human resources consulting. Other disruptors are blockchain, quantum computing, and also industries that have the potential to further and transform their technology. So we talked about hard skills, we talked about the future and the trends. I wanted to talk about some of the skills or the soft skills and attributes that employers could potentially be looking for. For me, I believe, and this is in no order, but I believe, in my opinion, communication is key. When an employer hires you, you have to be able to communicate, not to just to your boss, but with your colleagues, with your teams, and people cross-functionally. So communication is going to be key. Also, you should be able to deliver and be accountable for what you do. I always tell my team, don't promise something that you can't do. If I ask you to do something, and you say, I'm going to get it done by tomorrow, is that realistic? Because if you don't get it done by tomorrow, I'm going to ask you why you didn't get it done. So give me a time and time frame that you think is reasonable. So always deliver. They always look at people that want to go over and beyond, who has the determination and persistence to think outside the box and to question status quo. I always tell my team, I don't want you to always say yes to me. If I ask you to do something, don't just say yes. If you're going to disagree with me, tell me why. Tell me I want you to have an opinion, and tell me what you think the solution is. Because I'm not always going to have the answers. I rely on my team members to help me make those decisions. You also need to be flexible, right? I always use the example, be a bamboo, don't be an oak tree. Not a lot of people know what that means. Bamboo is still a very strong tree, but it moves with the wind, right? It's able to adapt to its environment, whereas an oak tree is also strong, but it doesn't move. Any wind can blow, but it's not going to move it, right? So I always tell my team, be flexible, but also be strong. And of course, ability to work with your coworkers, right? How they always ask you, how well can you get along with your coworkers? How well can you work as a team? So those are things and attributes that I think you need to keep in mind. And also, they also want to know how you face challenges. How do you do that? How do you prepare yourself? Well, it's pretty simple. You do it with confidence, and you're authentic. One of my senior directors came to me yesterday and said, Sherry, I screwed up. I didn't do something that I was supposed to do. And he was very upset. He believed that he had failed me. And I said, Michael, that's okay, but what have you learned from that? He's like, well, I learned that I need to make sure I keep track of what I'm doing so I don't forget to do something. I said, okay, so you've learned how to fix it. So do you think it's going to happen again? He said, no, probably not, because now I know what to do moving forward. So for me, not that the fact that he failed, but the fact that he came up with a solution because he didn't do something right is more important to me. So always be authentic. Tell the truth and come up with a plan to fix it. So how do we face failures? Again, accept it. If it's really your fault, own up to it. There's nothing wrong with that. We all make mistakes. We're all human. Learn from each other, or learn from your failure, right? What did you learn from that particular failure, and try and make it better. Remain ambitious. Don't stop. Just because you failed, it doesn't mean you have to stop trying. Be articulate. Say what you mean. And always be curious. Always ask questions. And be resourceful. You're not supposed to know all the answers. You can always go out and ask for answers. So I did talk about our career paths. I talked about technology trends and soft skills. But one thing that I think is very near and dear to my heart is the social responsibilities and networking. I have a passion for helping women in technology. I've learned so much and I've been through so much in my career. I feel like it's my time to give back to the community, to give back to girls that want to grow in this technology path. They want to have a career in tech, and I feel like it's my responsibility to give back. So I do that through a couple of ways. I'm involved in something called Code Talk. Code Talk is a digital web technology job training program for low-income, underemployed, and undeserved women. So these could be women from broken homes, they could be homeless. St. Joseph Center, which runs Code Talk, bring these girls in and over a period of many weeks, trains them, teaches them how to code, teaches them all types of tech skills, and then they actually get graduated and they're able to find jobs. So I hired 2 Code Talk girls, and they are absolutely amazing. They are so smart, they're so driven to succeed. And even though it's just an internship program, I'm going to probably hire them permanently to be on my team. We also have a program called WELL at Honest. It's women excelling in leadership, and I can't remember what the last L is, but it's leading women in the workplace. So I'm also part of that program as well. Also briefly been involved with Advancing Women in Technology, also the same concept. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to the advancement of women in technology through endowment of educational scholarships. So what we do is we find sponsors, companies such as different banks that are willing to sponsor us, and we end up giving scholarships to girls that are going through college. So last year we gave out 17 scholarships to girls in Southern California that were pursuing a tech degree. And then myself personally, I'm involved in mentorship at Honest. I have 2 mentees that I teach and work with. It's one of my favorite things to do. They're not part of my department, they're cross-functional. But I was telling Ruz earlier today, he's like, what do you like about mentorship? I said, to me, the most gratifying thing about it is I have a conversation with my mentee, I give them guidance because they need help with something. But then when I see them take action on that and better themselves, that means I've done my job. If they can do better, if they can learn from the lessons that I give them, then to me I've done my job. So that's my favorite part of being a mentor. So what are the key successes of a leader? I know some of you are thinking it's great, I want to be a business analyst, or maybe at some point I want to be a manager. But what makes a good manager? I believe you need to use your common sense. It's great to look at books, it's great to ask people, but at the end of the day, just use your common sense. It's really not that difficult. I had a CIO that once told me, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. So be nice to each other, right? Being snarky, being mean, it's really not going to get you anywhere. It's people that are nice that are always going to be that leader that sets them apart from others. Empower your team members. Give them the tools to be better. Give them the tools to be successful. And of course, lead by example. If I expect my team to do something and if I'm not doing that, then that defeats the purpose. Lead by example. Keep your team accountable. When you tell them this needs to be done and they agree, make sure that they deliver. They need to know that if they're committing to something, they need to deliver. And don't be scared to confront issues and difficult people head on. Be part of a team. Listen to feedback. Take action, communicate, and always remain fearless and a fighter. So what do I personally owe my success to? My core principles and ethics. I have certain beliefs, I stick to them, and I deliver on them. Resilience. Dealing with failure. I remember I was looking for a job. I sent over 60 different applications, and I received a no from each and every one for different reasons. And it's easy to give up. You're like, I applied for 60 jobs and I didn't even get one interview. But you just have to keep trying. It only takes that one interview and that one job that will make you successful. You just have to keep trying. Again, adaptability, we talked about that. We keep saying it, be a bamboo, not an oak tree. And persistence, right? My success was my drive and wanting to succeed. And most importantly, let no one get in my way. Keep pushing, keep trying. So I'll end my note with, as a leader, it's important to have empathy, patience, resilience, and always wanting to see my team succeed. I invest in them as their success is my success. Thank you.
What's in an immigrant DNA that has made you who you are today, that you want people to know, because the majority of us that are sitting here are immigrants?
I believe as an immigrant, you learn to become resilient. You become tough because every step of the way there will be challenges. There will either be language barriers, there will be culture barriers, there will be gender barriers. So being resilient and wanting to succeed and pushing forward, I believe that's really what sets immigrants apart from maybe a group of people that have things that are a lot easier for them. They grew up in Southern California, they've been here their entire life, and they've never seen anything outside of this world. So I think as immigrants, you become more resilient.
Speaking of that resiliency, but you also have developed confidence. Let's travel back to when you were about, let's say, 19, 20, 21, or 22, the age of the median age of the audience. I'll take myself out to keep that median average down. You didn't build that confidence overnight. Mm-hmm. How was it? How did you build it? And what do you have to tell your 23-year-old, if you will, that these are the things I should be doing or I should be thinking about as I'm building this confidence along the way?
It's terrifying. Anybody that tells you that isn't is lying. It's scary. You don't know if you're going to succeed. You don't know if things are going to work out. And to be honest, you don't even know where you're going or what you're doing. You think you have a path. You think you know where you're going, but you don't. But if I could turn back and tell myself when I was 21, I would tell myself, it'll be okay. You need to pace yourself. You can't push yourself too hard. It's good to have high expectations of yourself, but again, do your research, have knowledge, push harder, ask questions, and then speak up. And for women, lean in. It's okay to speak up. Just because you're in a room full of guys that all know what they're talking about, it's okay for you to speak up. You are the smartest person in the room. Sorry guys, no offense. But speak up. There's nothing wrong with that.
Let's go back to Honest Company. I don't know how many of us in this room really know about the Honest Company. Maybe we've seen your products out there. But you also had experience both working in a small firm and a large firm. You don't label Honest Company as a startup. You label it as a company that's ready to go on the next phase. We're not going to go into the details, but how is it working at Honest Company for you? Tell us about the experience, the ambiance, the environment. Tell us about your team. Tell us what your day looks like.
Sure. So it's interesting. Like I said in my presentation, I've worked from startups all the way to larger organizations such as IBM. And I believe the Honest Company is a nice sweet spot. It's not quite a startup, and it's not a corporation. It's midway. It's almost like a teenager. It's progressing, it's building, it's growing. Even though it's been around for a couple of years, but what I think makes Honest different, and not just because of its name, and not just because of its products, and because of just the outward label, but it's really the culture. It's the culture of the company that differentiates it from other companies. It's a very inclusive company, from the C-level down. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody is there to make things better. Everybody wants to work together to make the company grow. And everybody wants to work as one team. And it's very interesting because when you hire people, you never know if they're going to fit into that culture. There's no guarantees for that. And by default, those people either they accept that culture and they become part of it, or they leave because they just can't stand that culture. But it's a very interesting culture. It's a very interesting time to be at Honest, where the company is truly growing. We just went international a couple months ago into Boots and Douglas in Germany and in France and the UK. So the future is very bright for Honest.
I sure hope so. Now, let's shift away from the Honest brand into the word brand. You talked about brand. Oftentimes when we talk to students, we talk about resumes, we talk about how to write cover letters. But I noticed that you didn't talk about resumes or cover letters. Tell me why, and also tell me about a recent interview experience you had with a young graduate or someone potentially in college that is looking for a job, came for an internship.
So that's a great question. When people apply for jobs, you know, the focus is always on the resume. And granted, it has to be. I mean, that's really 50% of you potentially getting that job. So the hiring manager or the recruiter will be reviewing your resume to know what your background is and what you're capable of doing and what your skills are. For me, a bigger part of that is who you are as a person. So when I interview people, I really want to get to know who they really are. What kind of person are they? Again, are they nice? Are they a nice person? Can they work with my team? Can I work with them? I mean, I'm sure they'll have the skill sets, but it's truly what kind of person are they that really wants me to engage with them. So I recently interviewed somebody. He had an amazing resume. He had every skill set that I needed. He was a Harvard graduate, super smart. And I asked him a question. I said, you know, I love your background, I love what you do, but tell me a little bit about your interaction with people. Like, how do you deal with challenges? Like, say if you have a difficult colleague or a difficult customer, how do you deal with them? He's like, I can't, I don't want to. I can't deal with them. There's no way I can deal with somebody that's difficult. To me, it intrigued me because I'm like, how do you say that in an interview? So I asked him, I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, I'm an introvert. I don't like to talk to people. I don't like to interact with people. So to me, that was a no-go from there. I mean, he was at least being honest about it, but there might be roles that are okay with that, but for me, their personality and their willingness to be engaged is more important. So if I understood your question right, you're saying regardless of what your background is, you want to know how they fit into a company?
Yes, like there are different aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, like say if you're a chemistry background, so you could fit into any of that. You could definitely be, you could play an R&D role at The Honest Company because we do R&D for makeup, for baby products, creams, and what have you. We do have marketing roles that do the same. They do need people that have a chemistry background or know the products, and therefore they could potentially fill a marketing role. So it really, in my mind, it depends on what your passion is, what you want to do, and you just look and see which jobs are that you're attracted to, and you could line up your resume, line up your speech for your interview to accommodate that, because you know what they're looking for. You just have to line yourself up with that.
Nowadays, customer behavior and satisfaction is really important. I'm really intrigued about how data analysts collect data from the customer and what kind of data is important, and would you mind to describe an example of how information analysts apply those data to improve the product?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, and thank you for your support. Great question. So data analytics is a very big deal to a company like Honest. We sell products, right? But how do we know what sells best? How do we know what to sell more? How do we know what our consumers want? So we have a pretty extensive marketing department that spends every day just looking at the analytics of how many people touched our website, like which pages did they visit, what products are they buying. We're also selling our products on Target.com. We sell our products at Walgreens. So the data that comes from them is also important. Also, we're very big on our social networking. So we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. And every time a customer pings us or tags us or talks about our products, all of that information is captured. And every month, we look at it from a C-level executive team. We look at that and say, oh wow, our number one product today, and I know this off the top of my head because we just talked about it yesterday, our number one selling product is our mascara and our beauty team, and our wipes in our baby department. How do we know that? It's because of our sales, it's because of what people are talking about on social media, it's about the data that we're capturing from the different systems. So without that, we won't be able to know what those products really mean to us.
Looking at your resume or looking at your career path, you have jumped from one company to another. And by that jump, I don't mean it with a negative connotation. You were not afraid of change, so you moved from a company in steel business to venture capital to turn around to a company that's doing a product that is absolutely consumer sensitive. First of all, what have you learned from making those rapid moves, but also making those moves in senior positions that you have to build trust, you have to earn trust. At the same time, what kind of a mindset did you deploy, or did you, in a way, employ to say, you know what, it's okay to change companies. It's okay to change not career path but platforms, and you got out of your comfort zone. How was that? And also, what's your suggestion? What is your advice to college graduates nowadays that they think that they really know what they want to do, and perhaps they want to know what they want to do for the next decade or so, and they want to end up at XYZ company or ABC company, and that is it, and that's their future. What's your advice to them on that front?
So one of the things, great question. One of the things that I look to when I go into a new company, and I'll get to why I change companies, is I look at the portfolio or the resumes of the people that are on my team. The reason why I do that is I want to know their backgrounds. I want to know where they came from. In my previous job, I looked at a resume of one of my employees, and she had 25 years of experience working in the same company. So to a lot of people, that means loyalty. That means, wow, this person knows so much. For me, that's actually a detriment to you, because this is all you will ever know is that one company. It's like living in the same house forever. You're never going to know what else is out there. How are you supposed to grow and learn? So for me, that's what I figured, is if I stay in a company for too long, I will become redundant. My grandfather always said that water that flows is the water that's clean, right? If water stays in one place, it goes green and it goes murky, and there's no point in that water anymore. It's not clean, you can't do anything with it. So to be able to move constantly and go from company to company, that's what makes you grow. That helps you grow. Now, my advice to others is I don't suggest that you move every year. That's not something that you should do. You need to solidify who you are and what your role is at a company. Learn it, understand it, help the business grow, and help yourself grow. And at some point, if you feel that you're floating, if you've maxed out in what you're going to learn, it's time to leave. If you're doing repetitive tasks and you're not learning anything, that's no longer the place for you. You need to move.
Do you believe that students nowadays that are graduating, or perhaps first or second year of college, they need mentors? And if they do, where should they find these mentors? How should they approach them? For example, someone like you, maybe if I'm a freshman or sophomore university students, but do I really have access to CIOs like you? And should I even ask, or how should I even ask?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Mentorships can be at different levels. You know, people, somebody that's straight out of college will need a different mentor than perhaps the person that I'm mentoring, the individual that I'm mentoring currently. She's a senior director of customer service. Her needs are going to be very different from somebody that's straight out of college. So maybe I'm not the best person for that, for the entry-level person, because they may need more basic training, they may need more basic mentorship. That, not that I don't have the time for it, but I'm too removed from that, right? So maybe it'll be a manager that would be able to mentor somebody that just entered, and then eventually this person would then work with the CIO to become their mentor. So I think it really depends on what mentorship they're looking for.
Don't know how to behave like in front of like some serious person. So how can you tell us like some stories about like how do you manage to overcome them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. You're not alone. You're not the only person that feels that way. I still feel that way. I could still walk into I'm an introvert. I don't walk into a room full of people and I instantly start talking to people. That's just not me. After all these years and dealing with so many people, what I do is when I walk into a room, I stand in a corner, I start observing the people in the room, and then I hope that I find somebody that I know. Then I'm gonna go start talking to that person, right? Not the best thing to do, but what I have learned to do is I use the familiar person to help me navigate that crowd. So if I say, for example, if Ruz is the only person in the room that I know, I'll go stand and talk to him, and then I'll take him with me as we go talk to other people. And that almost instantly lessens the blow a little bit. It's not as uncomfortable as it needs to be. Not maybe the best solution, but that's what I've used.